Hi everyone, my name is Moni.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And today we are going to be giving you our thoughts on the new Stonemaier title, Pendulum.
Yeah, this one's designed by Travis Jones, and we played a 2-player full playthrough a couple weeks ago. So if you guys have not seen the playthrough, we're going to link to it right over here. And check it out.
We read through all the comments on that video, and we also posted a question on our Instagram, taking questions actually.
Yep.
And so we're going to try to answer every concern that we've come across in this video. Now, before we deep dive into our thoughts, we would like to discuss something that we forgot to mention, which is the non-timer option. So this game does come with an option for you to not use the sand timers, and it's this. The timer track shows all of the different moments where it wants you to flip over the sand timers.
Right.
As a group, what you would do is you would flip over all 3 sand timers to start the round as usual, and then everybody would be able to do as many actions as they want / are able to.
So you don't
without
just do whatever you want.
flipping over any of the sand timers.
Totally.
And then once everybody is ready, then you agree as a group to move on to the next part of the timer track, which tells you which sand timer to flip.
Right.
So
it's literally laid out for you. Very mechanical.
It's very mechanical. Yeah. I believe it is really intended to be more like a tool to help facilitate learning of the game and how the game works and just getting you used to the different action spaces before you truly go into the timed version.
Yeah, it's even in the rule book that says they recommend your very, very first round you ever play the turn-based, just so you can see how the meeples kind of get manipulated. And then after that, if you feel comfortable, then move on. If not, then just keep going.
We did not do this the first time we played. We actually didn't try using this until recently. And when we did use it, we were like, oh, yeah, you should definitely do the non-time version.
Totally.
The first round that you play of it. Especially if everybody's new at the table, use this. Learn how everything works, and then decide when everybody's comfortable to use the timers.
Totally.
The other thing that we kind of just wanted to mention is that when we made that video, we were making it to show you how the game is played. It doesn't necessarily show you how it feels to play the game.
Right.
So we pretty much taught the rules, and then we flipped the sand timers and we went for it.
Yeah, we went totally
like the way that we would play the game, but we yelled through all of our moves.
Yeah.
So when you're playing this game, you're not going to do that.
Right.
Nobody talks through their moves in this game.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that added to the kind of like the chaos, the chaotic feel of it, and the stress that some people were mentioning.
So let's start with our first impressions. The very first time we played the game.
Okay. The rule book is not the best. It's highly repetitive, mainly because it wants to really nail down
the concepts of the timers.
It really wants you to understand that. So if you read the rule book, you'll see what I mean. But it's not a hard game to learn.
No.
So after I read the rule book, I thought, okay, we could probably do this. But also, after I read the rule book, I was thinking to myself, this could either be really, really good or really terrible. So we actually played our first game of it in a 4-player setting. And so do you want to talk about your experience first?
Yeah, so I did not read anything about it. I did not study the board as I was getting taught.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate the timers, so I had a very, very difficult time with that first playthrough, and initial thoughts, I thought I didn't like it.
So for me, the first time I played it, after that first round, I was like, wow, this is really good. This is really exhilarating. This is like nothing that I've ever felt in a board game before. The concept of having to think on your feet in a board game, that felt very new to me.
Yeah.
So let's now kind of go into the various aspects of the game.
Okay.
So let's start with themes.
I think it's a little silly, but it's funny.
I'm going to put this down.
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah.
It's been there for a long
let's get this
time.
out of here.
It's very pasted on. Like, I'm not playing the game and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in this world. It's not like that. They created a story and a theme to fit this game.
Because ultimately you're trying to go up these tech tracks.
Right.
You know,
yeah. So the only thing that I kind of felt was tied into the theme were the different player factions, or like the different player mats, because they are all asymmetric.
Yeah.
So they have their different backstory as to what kind of a leader they are, and that plays a role in
the tracks.
The tracks and the different stratagems that you have. Components wise, I really like the color scheme. I'm into primary colors though. I really like
I think it looks nice on the table. I know there are some concerns from people about the tech tracks and the little marker that slides up and down.
So the tokens are all plastic.
Yes.
That doesn't really bother me. The thing that does is, yes, they slide. And what we're talking about are the victory point tokens for the 3 tracks, as well as the gray one.
Right.
I wish that they had designed them to have a little bit more friction. Like, I don't know how they could have done that.
I believe Jamie released on a blog the reason why they didn't do recessed boards is because they're double-sided boards.
Yeah, they're double-sided.
So you would have to have almost 3 layers on each side double-sided in order to have a piece fit in.
Right.
And it's just not really likely like that you can get that pulled off.
So just be cautious of where you put your player boards. Player count. So the game plays 1 to 5. There is a solo mode. It uses an automa. We haven't played the solo mode. I think the sweet spot might be 3.
I think so.
The thing about a 2-player game, the 2-player game is fine. I really enjoy it actually at 2. The thing about it is you can pretty much memorize where all the neutral
you can map a little bit
workers are so that I know whenever I'm going to put my workers out in those spaces, it always has to be a grande worker, like the big worker.
In a 3-player, there's not that permanent player out there, so the dynamic changes.
The dynamic changes.
2 players might not go to that spot, so it's wide open, so then you can use a smaller worker.
Right.
I get you. Yeah.
So if you're going to play a 4-player game, it plays well. It definitely is still more hands in the board.
Yeah, there's some people's concern about airspace in the game. So I think a house rule of 1 hand to take all actions is the right way. Somebody put that in the comments, and I was like, that's perfect. That makes total sense.
That's a good.
Because all you need is 1 hand to place a meeple, move a meeple. You take your rewards on your player board, so you don't need to have 2 hands out there hovering around.
I probably wouldn't play at 5. In addition to the concern about the hand airspace, there's also a concern about knocking over of sand timers. It does happen. It doesn't happen as often as you probably would think it will, but when it happens, it's not a big deal. Whoever knocks it over just picks it right back up, and you just keep going. The advanced boards you really have to study them. Like, you can't before going.
I think this entire game you have to study it.
You do, but with the basic mat or the basic mats, a lot of them have aspects that are all the same.
They all have all except for that 1 card in your hand.
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
else is the same.
So in the advanced boards, they're really asymmetric. You really got to study them.
Yeah, some of the advanced boards actually make you pay part of your tech track just to pick up cards or to get your workers out there.
And now for the timers. I know that's been a big, probably the biggest concern is about the way that the timers are used in this game. It does not feel gimmicky.
No, not at all.
It definitely feels like a Euro strategy game with a time element.
It's part of the strategy.
It is part of the strategy.
Totally.
When we think about real-time games, we played games like Magic Maze where the timer is the limit, right? It's like, it is the pressure.
Like it dings and it's over.
The purpose of a timer in those games is to put the pressure on you, and if you don't succeed within that time frame, you lose. Like, that's typically how those games go. The difference is in this game, players are in control of the timer.
Yes.
Second of all, it's built into your strategy. It's built into the functionality of the game.
Totally. There's no reason why you have to flip over the purple or the green timers. The black ones are typically going to go back and forth right on their 45 seconds. But the other ones, you can use it to your advantage. If I recognize, like, Monique has a piece that's eligible to move, and she's not moving it, I could probably lock it in by just moving the timer onto her piece, and now she's stuck.
If a timer runs out, it's okay. Like that, I think that's the whole point that I'm trying to make. And that's why I don't feel like it's necessarily the sand timers that make it stressful. It's the people that you're playing with. If it were to be stressful, it's the people that you're playing with. Like, the purple sand timer is going to dictate when the round ends. Don't flip it, Naveen, even though I know he's going to.
It's like, why wouldn't I? Because you're going to benefit, so now it's time to flip it.
So if I were to feel stress, it's during those moments.
Yeah.
It's during those moments, and it's in moments where my strategy starts to fail. And like mid-round, if your strategy starts to fail, you have to take a second to kind of like regroup and form a new strategy.
Yeah, you have to calibrate.
In the sense, that's kind of where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to separate yourself from the round and kind of figure out, okay, where am I going to go next? And then just jump back in. The good thing about that is for people who have AP, it's virtually non-existent. If you don't calculate your movements properly, you might have some substantial downtime. Like, if you put all of your workers in the 3-minute timers, then you're going to sit for 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So the amount of downtime that you have in this game is dependent on how you play it.
It is, yeah.
Now, without the timers, is it boring? Yes.
Once you have that taste of the timer and you've played it several times, to then have our experience where we went back and played it without the timer.
That's true.
For sure.
Yeah, that's true. So we don't know a world without the timers because we played the game first with them. So from our perspective, I probably wouldn't play it without the timers.
Unless I was teaching a brand new person,
yeah,
and I really wanted them to see kind of how the meeples move around.
Right.
Yeah.
You're missing a big part of the game. And I don't know if the mechanisms really stand on their own without them. because it's a lot of exchanging resources for another thing to boost up. It's a lot of just exchanging a lot of things in order to go up on those tracks, which on its own doesn't sound very interesting, but the timers do make that part interesting.
Yeah, because in the turn-based, there is a set amount of times you will be able to take the black action. But in the timer-based, that black action and that green action might bing back and forth because the purple's just been sitting there.
Right.
In the turn-based, it's like now everybody flips, and it must be flipped at this time. So there are a set number of turns that you can kind of map out. So I really, really enjoy the time aspect of it.
Yeah. Last thing about the timers. The thing that they provide that makes me really enjoy this game is the feeling of suspense and anticipation. Like the anticipation of waiting for that timer to flip, hoping that it flips before that timer flips so that I can get that worker and put it there or shut somebody out. And tailoring your strategy depending on which one is going to end first, right?
That's plan A, that's plan B. Actually, let's go plan B.
Yeah. So the timers just add so much to the game that you just can't know without playing it. It's really easy to focus on the sand timer aspect of it, but it is an engine builder.
It's absolutely an engine builder. You start with a base income on every action, and so as you build your engine, it's going to change. So your goal is to try to figure out how you can take your actions the most efficiently.
The worker placement spots can only give you so much. So you're trying to build up your engine in the form of these provinces and stratagem cards in order to make each of your actions just more efficient and just better, just more rewarding. So figuring out that puzzle of like how to build up your engine is really where a majority of the game is. Yeah.
But I love the fact that at the end of the round, you can only have 2 cards. So your engine, you can swap in and out of your engine. But it's never to a point where it's like, man, Monique's engine's so good over there. She has like 6 cards. I got 2. What am I going to do?
Right.
So it's very fair in that sense.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of concern with this game about keeping yourself and your opponents accountable for their actions. In the playthrough, I made, I think, 3 mistakes. And the only reason why you make mistakes is either, number one is you purposely did it, which I did not purposely do any of those things. So everybody has to understand the structure of taking an action. Okay, so when the timer flips and it's an action is eligible, pay the fee associated, you move the meeple, then you reap the rewards. People make mistakes because they don't follow that, and I was guilty of that a couple times.
Bottom line with the accountability is, yes, it's tough. It's tough to see if people are really paying or this and that. So the way that I see it is play with people who you know are going to be honest and who you know pretty much follow the rules. Like when you teach them the rules, they can play the game following the rules.
Just don't play the game for money. That's it. Just don't gamble.
But to be fair, I don't think we made more mistakes than we usually do in a playthrough. Like we were people before we started making content, we were people who thought like, we got all the rules down. We're probably not making any mistakes. I'm probably exaggerating. But once we started making content, every playthrough we put out, somebody's like, at 28 minutes, you did this and you didn't pay for that. And we'll say, they're right. Like, we made a mistake there. Oops. And in the moment, you don't think that you're making a mistake. Yeah. So mistakes happen in every game.
Yeah, it happens.
I just don't feel like it's that much worse in this one.
Yeah, just know the structure on how to take an action. And in this particular game, it will help out a ton.
But that might not be true for every game group. That's why I still recommend playing with people who you know would be a good fit for this kind of game. So what is your final thoughts?
So my final thoughts are completely different than my final initial thought. So final initial thought, I said thumbs down. Final thoughts now, I actually really like the game a lot. Oh. Because I didn't understand.
You win so much.
I know.
Just kidding.
We did talk about accountability on the last one, so I won because of probably messing up. But I really, really enjoy the game. I have a good time playing it. It's actually not very long,
it's not
for what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's actually really easy to get into and out of. And then I like trying to really understand the game better and better. This is a game that the more you play it, the better you will be.
Yeah.
You are going to be an inexperienced player, really understanding how to manipulate the time and how to work with the time and roll with it and not see it as this barrier for why I can't take certain actions. I was actually using it as an asset. So for me, I think the game is excellent. You?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've liked the game since the beginning. I think my enjoyment of it has increased. Now that we played it with the advanced side and all this and that, this is not a perfect game. You know, a lot of the concerns are founded. Sand timers in a Euro game, we've never seen this before from what I've experienced.
Right.
So I really think that they took a big risk. The honest truth is they took a big risk with this game. Some people are going to hate it, some people are going to love it. It is what it is, but the thing that is hard to argue is that this is probably one of the most unique experiences. This is definitely the most unique experience I've had in a very long time.
It'll wake you up.
Are there things about the game that I would change? Probably. You know, I do wish that starting turn privilege order were dependent on the
Your
player
map.
mats, just like inside. Right? We already talked about the component differences that I would probably make changes to.
Over time, we'll figure out the balance of the mats.
Yeah, that's another thing. Some of the mats do feel like a little OP, but we're not going to tell you which ones because we're probably going to hear about them as time goes on. But I really like it. I find it to be very exhilarating. You know, it pushes me to think on my feet. Every time I play it, it always feels like a puzzle that I just need to keep getting better at. And also, just so you know, watching a playthrough of this game, it seems like it's going to either feel way too chaotic or really boring, depending on who you're watching.
Right.
So in order for you to truly, you know how this game plays, you just have to play it.
You have to try it.
It's just an experience that you can't really glean from watching others play. Overall consensus is we both actually really enjoyed the game.
We do, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope this helped. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing.
And if you have any further questions, feel free to leave a comment below and we will try our best to answer them for you. Bye!
Bye.